Hi guys, today we're going to work on learning how to integrate Mendeley into a Markdown document using Papaja. And this video is specifically going to focus on citation styles and kind of the way our lab is keeping track of our citations. Although there are lots of ways to do this, Mendeley seems to work best for us. So I'm going to start with Mendeley and then work on how that integrates well with Papaja. So I have the desktop application open, but if you need a Mendeley account, it is free. So you just go to Mendeley. And I'm already logged in, but what you could do is create yourself an account, and this is like your online portal, and it keeps all of your information synced. And so one thing our group has done is create a group. And that allows me to work with lots of students or other collaborators. So we have a group called Doom Lab, but I could search for a group or create my own new group. And that allows my students to join, and it syncs our citations across everyone's computers. So when someone updates a reference for me, it'll sync on my computer as well. And there are lots of different groups that you can join if you're just looking for citations, but we use the group to interact with each other to keep track of everything everybody's doing. So the online portal is really nice. I don't use it very often, mainly use the desktop app. So in the desktop app, and I have a Mac, but this looks the same on Windows, you've kind of got a couple of different things going on. And so you can actually do a literature search directly in Mendeley. So let's say I wanted to look up semantic priming. It will pull up some of the things that I have in my account already that follow semantic priming. Okay. You can also look at Mendeley Suggest, which allows you to, it looks at your documents and then it recommends things for you, sort of similar to the way that Google Scholar works. But mainly I use everything in groups. So my group appears down here. I'm sorry, the font's going to be kind of small. I don't think I can make it any larger. Not today. But you can also make your own library. So I can look at all of the documents that I have, which I think are only mine and don't include the group documents. You can favorite documents, you can look at your own publications, so things that are tied to your own name. You can create folders for specific projects. But the magic to me really happens down here in groups. So our group has like several 900 something documents in it because of the, 2,300, because of the different things that we're working on, including some meta-analyses. And we have all of our documents separated into folders based on the project they're worked on, but that isn't totally necessary. It just helps the students keep track of which one they're working on. And so within that, we can also have folders of different things. So we're looking at outlier analyses across all these different journals, so we put those into big folders. And it could be that you do folders by group that you're working with or folders by project, just kind of depends. But I can always find all of them here in the overall folder as well. Now, of course, if you're going to do this, and lots of people are doing lots of different things at the same time, what you can do, what will happen is you'll end up with duplicates. So under tools, you can do check for duplicates. I'm sure I have a zillion, yeah. And so I can go through and fix all of these so that even though a citation might be in several folders, there's only one version of it. So this happens a lot when we're like syncing documents, and sometimes it decides that there's two of them instead of merging them. Or just because we're all kind of working on similar ideas and somebody downloads an article, citation, and doesn't realize we already have it. So if you want to merge things, you can look at what is matching on them and confirm the merge, or you can switch, and I would pick the lowercase one because APA style requires lowercase, so I would tell it to use this title and merge them together. And I could go through and do that for all of them. I do this about once a month because it happens a lot. But the nice thing about having all of these different folders is it allows us to kind of keep track of what's going on. Other things that happen in MinDelay when you're not in the duplicate section are all the authors down here. So I can pick a specific person I wanted to look at. And it also allows you to see sometimes what will happen is one author will get listed multiple times. So that might be kind of hard to see in this particular folder. So let's look at this meta-analysis here. I think we might have fixed this one already, but we used a lot of Pennebaker's work, and we had to make sure that he was listed in here the same way every single time. And so what you'll see when that happens is, oh, here's a good one. Here's two of them that are different. The same author with two different spellings of their name. So L range here. And what I'd want to do is fix this one so that it's spelled the same as every other version. Okay. And so when they do that, that will collapse all the authors into one person. Okay. That's only important when you start to cite things, because if they're spelled differently, the citation plugin for our Markdown will assume that they're different people and spell their full name out, and you don't want that to happen. That's something I tend to fix as I am finishing up a document. And so we'll go through and look at the citations and realize that it's the same person. It just thinks it's two different people because one of them's got an initial and one of them doesn't. And so we just merge them to all be the same, so it doesn't look funny when you cite. Now, if I want to add articles to this, what I can do is go and search for an article I'm looking for. So let's go find something on semantic priming. Okay. I'll say I wanted to pull in this very famous Neely article. What I would usually do is click on the article and go to the real journal page. This tends to work a little better when it's on the actual page from the journal and not necessarily a PDF. And there's a plugin for MinDelay that you can use. And to install that, you do Tools, Install Web Importer. But on this plugin, I just click on it when I'm on a page that has a citation I'm interested in, and it will pull all of the information from that citation if it can find it on the page. So this is why the journal page works a little better, because it tends to have everything you need, especially the DOIs. Those are very handy. Now that I'm logged into my account, I can click here and find a specific folder I would like to put this in. So maybe I want to stick that in my semantics folder, but you can actually stick it in multiple folders at once. Hit save. It saved that reference for me. So now when I go back over here to MinDelay, I'm going to look at my semantics folder. Clear that out. Okay. Right now, there's not really a whole lot in this because I started using groups. So let me hit sync. And that article popped up right here. Okay. So that's how you can do a web search and integrate that into your MinDelay. So you can start saving a bunch of articles that you're interested in looking at later. Okay. In this window here is just the list of different articles or the searches that you're looking for. And then there's a window over here on the right that allows you to see the citation things. And you can move all these around depending on how big, what you want, how big you want them to be. From there, what I can do is I can change the type of articles. So if it's actually a book instead of a journal, I can fix that. I can fix the title. I can click on the author name and fix the author name. And as you're typing authors, it'll actually pop up what you already have saved in your database so that you know maybe if you have two different spellings of it. Journal title, year, volume, etc., etc. You can also, when you have the DOI, click search. Be careful when you do this in MinDelay. This works great in EndNote, but in MinDelay, sometimes if you have the wrong DOI, the article will switch to being the one that's associated with that DOI and not the article you want. So what I always tell people to do is when they are trying to maybe update the details and they click on the search button is watch what happens to the actual article title up here. So I'm going to click look up. Nothing really happened because it had everything already, but if it had maybe the abstract or the DOI or some other numbers that I needed, it would have popped up and updated all of them. So I can hit details are correct. Search will actually pull up the information from MinDelay, but also be careful with those because not everything in MinDelay is correct. But in this one it's a pretty famous article, so it pulled in the abstract for me. Now another thing you can do is if you have the PDF, so I can also take all of my PDFs from my computer and drag and drop them into MinDelay to organize my own library. You do only have, with a free account, you have a limited amount of space. But for this talk, I really am trying to talk about how we use this to integrate into our papers. But let's say you have the PDF, you can actually double click on it and open it and take notes here on the side. So you can annotate the PDF and do some note taking on what you are learning from the paper. I don't think I have any that have the PDFs because we've mostly just been using this to do citations. Oh, I lied to you. Here's one. So here's an article about how people only publish significant results. So I could start taking some notes. Say this is great. You can actually highlight and annotate in the document as well. So I could highlight this piece here, tell it to highlight. I could leave a note directly on the piece, and that sort of thing. And it will save your annotations for different parts. So you can use this kind of as a way to skip in and out of different areas. All right. And that's useful if you're going to sync your entire library. Just you have to be careful about size if you have lots and lots of PDFs because it does automatically sync your account online and you have a limited space. It's not crazy small, but it's not huge either. And so if you're interested in that, search more on Mendeley. I'm going to focus now on how do we take, let's say, a list of documents here that we used in our paper and integrate that into our Markdown account. So this is the way we organize, and it's the way that I share across my lab and kind of keep track of all the papers we're using. And I could use it to also review and research literature as well. Now let me go down to Studio. So this is part of my series on reproducible manuscripts because I think one solution that science needs to work on right now is being transparent. And this specifically covers citation styles, and we still have at least one more video on pictures. So we've done how to pull numbers from R chunk in a different video, and we also did tables. So if you're interested in either of those, you can go back and watch some of the older videos. Now this I can make into a reasonable text size. So I have Papaja installed. If you're new to Papaja, there's a link that you can use to learn how to install it. And the writer of this is actively working on creating some how-to documents as well. But I already have it, so I'm going to create a new R Markdown. And this actually, what I'm about to do, a lot of it will apply to other types of R Markdowns as well. I'm just specifically framing this as APA-style manuscripts because that's what I do. So I'm going to click From Template, and then Papaja here. Click OK. So we talked before about how I can change all of this sort of document information up here. So I could create a title. So example citation document, I could call this cites. I would change my first author to be my name. I would put in my postal address, which is in Missouri, my email, and I'm the only author. However, if there were other authors, I could leave in this name thing, or you can copy these two lines and repeat it over and over again to get lots of authors. Now, under my affiliation, I work at Missouri State. And I would get rid of the second affiliation here. Now, author notes are really handy because it allows you to just kind of say who you are and what you're doing. And so what I would do is I would just say, I'm an associate professor at Missouri State, or I could just say that Erin is awesome because today in the dreary weather, everybody needs some love. Okay. Now, under the abstract, what we do is type in the abstract. Now, it does have to be indented here, and you can use citations in the abstract as well. But be sure you leave in these tabs here. Additionally, make sure this section here looks exactly like this, lined up, because sometimes the space will give you lots of grief. So I could type in my different keywords. I tend to delete the word count thing because the journal tends to ask for it in the submission part, not the paper itself, but you can leave it in. So some keywords. Now this is where the action starts to happen, this bibliography thing. So we're going to use BibTeX format, and you don't really need a BibTeX editor if you're going to use Mendeley. There are BibTeX editors you can use that are great. I like Mendeley because of the interactive way that we can work together across our lab. So you have to have a bibliography for something to knit, and if you don't and you're still working, just turn it off by using the number sign so that when you run, it'll knit for you, because otherwise if you have this link and you don't have this file, it stops working. But let's say I want to create this file, and let's see here. I'm going to go back to Mendeley. I'm going to use this folder. Okay. So the way to create a BibTeX file from your Mendeley document is very easy. So I'm going to hit Command A or Control A to highlight everything in this folder. Okay. So we have 200 references. Now we may not use all of those, and that's okay. So you can have things in your BibTeX, your reference file, that you don't actually use. That's no big deal. So it's not just going to take this file and plug them all in at the end. It's going to wait until you actually call them and use them. So we're going to right-click, Export, okay, and it automatically saves as a bib. Now you need to put this in the same folder that you have the Markdown file, which I'm just going to kind of stick in downloads right now. So I'm going to save this as site example. And when you do that, a couple of things happen. So it saves it, and now I can come over here and change this name to site example. So you just have to have them saved as the same name. I'm also going to save my Markdown file here as site example. Okay. So they need to be in the same folder, or you'll need to tell it what folder to look in. And I find just good practice with Markdown generally is to put everything in the same folder, or at least subfolders within the same folder. All right, that's going to tell the bibliography where to look. Figures in text, figures list, table list, footnote lists, these are all things that you can manipulate to be APA style or not. Line number, yes or no. Language, English, because I'm going to write in English. Class is man, I forget what that actually stands for. And then output, so Papaja here, I can do APA 6 PDF, or if you're wanting a Word document, you can do Word. We're going to leave this as PDF. Now, I'm fairly sure this is the point where you have to have LaTeX installed because it's used for the citation creation. Now, thankfully, nicely, this already has some things set up for you. So it kind of shows you methods, procedures, results. I tend to delete some of these things because it depends on what I'm doing. So for example, I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't want it to show up in my document. But I'm mostly going to just what I tend to do is just clear out all of the included text and leave the structure alone. Okay. Now, I agree that you should cite your R packages that you use, which is what some of the we cite these R packages pieces are that are in here, but we automatically integrate it into Mendeley. So we'll take the citation from, let's say, ggplot or NLME, some packages that we tend to use in nearly every document, and we have them, they have them stored in Mendeley so we can use them in the maybe data analysis section. So in this analysis, we did multi-level models using NLME, and then we add the citation right there. And so it is integrated, it's not just like a reference dump, it's integrated into the section of the data analysis where appropriate. All right, so I've got the structure, and you're about to create your first like almost total manuscript, right? Especially if you go back and create some R output and cite it in text, that sort of thing. And if you want to just start writing, your intro goes here. So right above the methods, there's no intro anywhere below these 3 dashes. Don't delete those, they're important. And there's no header, you don't have a marker for it. So I just tend to move it down some and start, after this first chunk. Now I use this chunk to put in all of my package names and all of the things that I need to load for this to run. So instead of calling them later, because if you move the text out of order, you can ask my students this semester, if you put your chunks out of order, it will not run. So anytime you call a library or you have some code that, like our cleanup code, if you've watched my videos on plot making, ways to make graphs look nice, I would stick it right here at the top. Because then when you go to run it, at least it's run first. So order does matter when it comes to chunks. It assumes that the order is going to use the information in order. Okay. So I wanted to start typing. I could say, since we're doing a semantic priming theme here, semantic priming has been shown to be awesome. Okay. Now I want to cite maybe an article about that. And so now we're really getting into how do you cite things from Mendeley into Markdown. Okay. And so the main key is the @ symbol. The @ symbol indicates that you are doing a citation or a reference of some form, so you might be referring to a table. And then you would type the citation key. So if you're using the base colors, the font will turn purplish pink when you add a citation. But how do I know what to call this citation? Because it's going to open up that BibTeX file and look for it. Okay. When you're first getting started, let me plug a cool add-in that you can put in our studio, and then I'll tell you what we do now, because after you get started, the add-in gets a little cumbersome, but it's a cool, shiny app, especially if you're new. So you click on Addins. You do have to install this, and I'm not sure if I remember how to install. I think you might just do packages, install, and then it's CITR for cite R. See if that works. It's like you already have that, thanks, bye. So after you install cite R, so this would be, I'll go ahead and include it here if you're interested. Just take this part off and run that line. And you may have to restart Studio. I can't remember, I installed this quite some time ago. So I click it on add-ins, and I've actually got a couple of different add-ins, and cite R is one of them. So you can click Insert Citations. As long as your bibliography file can be found, it will load the bibliography for you. And you can just start typing. So I don't know if I have any semantic priming in this folder, because I loaded my folder about bad statistics. So let's search the word power, there's going to be a bunch of those. And I could pick, let's say, the Cohen article, and maybe there's a really nice backer paper about power. Okay. And so what it's going to do is it's going to show me the citations here. So it's got the @ symbol. 99% of the time, the citation is going to be the last name of the first author and the year. So it pulled Backer here in 2016, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Cohen in 1962, and it put them in square brackets. If you want them in parentheses, you leave this checked. If you don't, you turn it off, and you'll see now that it's changed it to be in text, and it takes off the square brackets. Okay. Let's leave them in parentheses right now, so enter. Okay. And it will insert them wherever your cursor is. So let me move these bad boys over here. Okay. And so you see how they've turned purple. It's going to know to pull this specific code here, and it's going to actually put these in alphabetical order for me. Now I could type them later, not in alphabetical order, and it will rearrange them automatically. So in-text citations, if you have multiples of them, should be in alphabetical order, and it actually fixes that for you. It also will fix the et al.ing. So let's say I want to reference that backer paper again. It's got multiple authors. It's going to, the first time, include all the names, and the second time, go ahead and add all that. So that's really fantastic if you're like me and you can't remember if you've cited them in the paper. This takes care of that et al. Thing for you. So from here, what's happening is that anything in the square brackets are automatically going to be in parentheses. So they're, you don't have to add the parentheses yourself. And the ones in parentheses are going to have the what the heck is that thing called? Ampersand? The and symbol that's above the 7 on a regular QWERTY keyboard. So they're automatically going to be like name and name, comma, year, if they're in the parentheses. So if it's in square brackets, they'll look like name and name, year in parentheses, with colons, semicolons between different authors. If they're not in parentheses, or not in the square brackets, there will be regular text citations. Okay, and remember that those look like name, and then the year is in parentheses. And so the way that you control like in-text versus end of sentence is with the square brackets. Let's say you want to suppress the author. What you do is add the minus sign. Okay. So a minus sign will suppress the author. I don't tend to use this too much because if I'm going to cite them again, I just use the in-text one, but that's a different option that you can use. Okay. Now, one issue, the reason I am not like the biggest fan of CiteR, because it's really a handy package, is that every time you want to move on from another sentence, you have to close it and then reopen it. And that is an issue with it being a Shiny app. So Shiny apps run in RStudio here, or they could run in browser, but this one it makes sense, it runs in Studio. So I cannot go back and forth. So let's say I want to add some more citations. I still have to wait for it to load, and we just have these giant BibTeX files sometimes. So let's say I want to pick this Mendeley, insert that. But as soon as I hit insert, it closes the citation, the CiteR. And so I'd have to open it and close it every single time. And that gets a little tedious, especially if you maybe write your document in Word and edit it a bunch and then go back and put it in Markdown and you're trying to just do the citations all at once. So how can you, using MinDelay, make that faster? So the nice thing about MinDelay is that once you export the citations into BibTeX at least once, what happens is it adds a little piece over here on the right that shows you the citation key. So let's say if I want to reference this Loftus article, the citation key is right here. And so let me say Hayes, it's going to have this citation key. Now the trick on this part is that you have to have exported the document to a BibTeX at least once. So it creates these when you export to a BibTeX file, or at least that's my experience anyway. So let's say I want to reference this Cumming article. I can highlight the citation key and copy it. Come over here and say Cumming. So I have to add the little @ so it's in pink. Says that it will be all right, or whatever document or whatever piece I wanted to say. And so that's one reason why, especially with multiple screens, I can flip back and forth between MinDelay. Once you get the hang of this, I just tend to assume that it's the first, last name of the first author plus the year. And if I am actually wrong, it will tell me. So let's say I tried to use a misspelled version of it, it will actually tell you it couldn't find the reference. The only time you're going to have trouble is if there's multiple authors who've published something in the same year. And so what happens then is that it'll get A and B, just like you would reference A and B. Okay. So let's see what this looks like when we knit. Here. Okay. Oh, I was going to misspell one. Oh well, we'll do that in a second. Okay. So you'll notice down here under references, I don't have it telling it to create a reference page. It just does this automatically. And there are 200 plus files, or 200-ish references in our BibTeX file. And you're going to see here in a second that it's only going to cite the ones that I typed in directly. Now, something about RStudio's PDF viewer, I don't know if it's a Mac thing or if it's my computer thing or what, but it looks terrible. So I'm going to actually open this in Adobe because it's like kind of slightly out of focus. I don't know if that's just me. All right, so plus I am blind as a bat. So it created this citation document. It's got all the nice formatting on here. Let's go down. So this is semantic priming with power article cited, so this doesn't totally work, but you'll see how it included the entire name in the 2016, and I'm going to talk about this issue here in just a second. And then did the semicolon and did colon. And so this just shows my example that I typed, but now that I've used this article twice, it's etaled, and then I used this one again. I think I got distracted for what I was doing. I've said a minus sign will suppress the author. It didn't seem to, which is sort of interesting. But you'll notice that it also etaled documents that have more than 6 authors, because that's a APA thing. Now, even though there are a ton of citations in that folder, it only added the ones that I referenced. So what we'll do at the end of a paper is we'll make sure that all of our references look like they're formatted correctly, because you can tweak them in Mendeley and then just re-export the bib file and reknit your document. So this is a really nice part about the Mendeley integration, is that if there's something wrong with the citation, I fix it in Mendeley and then I just hit knit again and it'll fix over here after I resave that file. Most of this is looking pretty good, so see it automatically etaled this coming article because it has more than 6 authors, right? All of these have been checked, so they're looking okay, but one tricky thing that we found in Mendeley is the issue with people with multiple names. So if they have sort of, not 2 last names, but a double last name like Vandermaas here, it will auto-capitalize their names / we had to capitalize them. So one issue, let me go down here, especially Vant Veer, her last name. So sometimes we have it lowercase and sometimes we have it uppercase because it was giving us trouble. So what we did to make Mendeley realize that this was one name that it should keep together instead of like a middle name and a last name, was we ended up capitalizing them all. So for some reason, and this may just be one of those weird quirky things in Mendeley, anytime we tried to reference, let's say, this Van Art paper, it thought that the last name was Art and stuck the Van as a middle name. And that's not appropriate. But if I capitalize the V, even though it shouldn't be capitalized, then it was fine. And so that was like a trick for us to get it to cite correctly. And so what I did, because it shouldn't be capitalized, right, is at the very end of the sort of process before I submitted it, I opened the BibTeX file in a text editor. So on a Mac, you could use TextEdit. I have Komodo because I do a lot of coding. Komodo Edit is free, and it color codes for coding if you are a coding person. And so I actually have one of those already open. So I just opened it in Komodo. Okay. And then I just searched for the word van with a space after it and fixed all of them to be low. But really, this will give you a good example of what it should look like. So let me find a different one here. And I think I can make text bigger here. Well, I thought I could make increase font size. That's not doing crap, is it? All right. So I'm sorry this is small, but here I'll copy it. So what happens in the bibtex file is it creates this line for the author, and it puts double names in these curly brackets. And for some reason, sometimes when you do the lowercase thing, it doesn't always add the curly brackets. So what I did was just like open the document in text editor and went through and told it to find and replace all Vans uppercase to Vans lowercase so that I would spell people's names correctly. Being a person with a name that for some reason seems to be difficult to spell, I always like to make sure that I've cited people's names correctly. Now, pronunciation, not my forte, but that allowed us to sort of fix a problem we were having with Mendeley, where if it was a lowercase v, it wouldn't cite it correctly, and I was messing it up. So we uppercased them all on our end, and then fixed it in the bibtex file at the very end of the document creation. And that was only because we were having some issues with it. If you have a better solution, I will be happy to hear it. And so what we've done now is create all of our citations in text, and it automatically adds them to the reference list for you. I'm not entirely sure why the minus thing didn't work, so let me try it in brackets real quick. And I'm also going to misspell one, or I'll just call it cheese. So we're retesting the brackets thing, and also I've got a reference that will not be in my reference list. That will not cause your document to break and not run, but what it does is it tells me over here that that document has not been found. The other thing it'll do, close some of what I got going here. Let me reopen this. Is if you include a citation that does not exist, it will give you little question marks. So one thing you can do is search your document for question marks. Okay. So apparently for the minus sign thing, you do have to put it in square brackets for it to support the author. This is where you'll just get the year. Okay. But I don't know why you wouldn't just do it like this. And so I often will search for question marks, because that usually is that we've typed something wrong, or we've put the wrong year in, or we just kind of have one of those ridiculous moments where something doesn't work correctly. The only other thing I wanted to cover in this one about citations is citation styles. So you can actually change the citation style, and I'm going to open an example document. To be in a different format. So this is APA, and I've really been focusing on APA because that's what I write in, and a lot of things are written in APA, for better or worse. But if you're submitting to a journal that maybe has a specific style that you need to mimic, what you can do is use this line here. So we can change the style by using CSL. I've got it commented out in this document because we submitted it and they didn't like it, so we submitted it somewhere else. And we saved a CSL file that matched the style we were looking for. And the great thing about the internet, especially Zotero, which is a different type of Mendeley, basically, it's another free one, is that they have a style repository. So I just Googled Zotero style repository. Let's say I need to do Harvard style. Okay. Oh, it helps if you spell Harvard correctly. Whoops. Okay. So let's say I need to do Harvard style. I actually got like crap ton of options. So I could pick, let's say, this one in particular. I would save the file. Click OK. Again, it needs to be in the same folder that the original document is in. And now I can add that to my example here. So I could say CSL, and I'm going to tab over, and you'll notice that as soon as I put in the colon, it turned pink. And then you need to do it in basically the same way the citation looks. So square brackets, if I get the right key here, quotes, and put in the name of the file that you just downloaded. Okay. So even though this says APA to 6 down here, it's actually going to override the citation style, not the structure of the document, but the citation style. So let's look at that. Get rid of this thing. So now you'll notice that it's changed citation styles on me where it does at all in italics, and it ignores the commas. So then down here, it's taken everything that it could find and changed it to be the Harvard citation style. So this is a quick way to change between maybe Chicago and APA, or MLA and APA, or if the journal has a very specific one, hopefully they'll point you to the right citation style. Then the good thing about the Zotero library is there are literally thousands of them, and a lot of journals have put out citation style ones so that you can do it in the right format specific to their journal. Now that will not change any of the structure of, like, let's say the bolding and the references, results, this sort of APA structure here, because that's what Papaja is doing. But it will at least override the citations, and you can kind of figure out how to do the structure using some of Markdown's basic rules. All right, so in this video I covered how to integrate citations using Mendeley, and just some of the little quirks to be aware of, and then how to cite them in text and how to change the citation style, specifically focusing on the really lovely package that is Papaja to create maybe an APA style manuscript.